Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second Abovus webinar of today. This one will be focusing on our bookings and appointments capabilities as part of the My Council Services platform. I think some of you that are joined us this morning for our Waste and Environmental Services walkthrough. You'll see a little bit of overlap with some of that content, but not too much. For the vast majority of you, we have got quite a few people on the call this afternoon, so everyone's very welcome. This will be new material, and we'll try and give you a level set of information that introduces you to us as a business, the platform that we provide to UK local authorities, and specifically we'll look at some of the bookings and appointments capability. So I'm sure many of you, or probably all of you in fact, are now very familiar and fully conversant with online events and online meetings, whether you're using GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, Zoom, or Microsoft Teams or some other variation of virtual conferencing tools, because they've become something of a way of life for all of us since the onset of the public health emergency that we continue to experience. That said, it's always worth just running through a few FAQs for these sorts of sessions, just to make sure everyone knows what the drill is and the protocol. So one of the things we do for these types of sessions is record them. The reason that we do that is so that there's an on-demand version of it once we're finished for this afternoon. So if you like what you've seen today and you want to share it with colleagues internally, you will have a link that you can share with them. You will receive that from us within probably approximately 48 hours of the session ending. So we need to process it and get materials together, and then we'll send links out. So certainly, if not before, they'll be in your inbox by Monday morning, I would imagine. We'll also give you, as part of that follow-up, copies of the slides, and if we've referenced any case studies, we'll share those as well and give you links to those resources. If you like what you've seen today, and bearing in mind this is probably going to be about a 45-minute session, so we'll have you on your way by quarter past three, I should say. But you want to go into more detail or investigate something in more specifically, then we can always do a rerun and and adapt the agenda to your organisation specifically. So just ask us if you want to do that. I'll talk about how you get in contact with us at the end. In terms of questions, we do ask you or encourage you to ask questions. What we do though, however, is we do mute everybody's lines, so you're not able to speak back to us, unfortunately, on these kind of one-to-many sessions. And we have got a lot of people online this afternoon, which is great, listening in. But what we do ask you to do if you want to ask a question is use the chat facility on the GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting console. And that's actually where my colleague Rachel Clinton, amongst other responsibilities and duties this afternoon, is vitally important, because Rachel will field questions that you may have as we go through the session, and that will be done via the chat facility. If there's something that's more involved and we need to get into a bit more of a kind of iterative conversation with you, Rachel will let you know, and we'll arrange a follow-up session. But please don't be shy to ask questions. We are on broadcast this afternoon, and for reasons that are probably obvious to everybody, folks on the other side of this, on the receiving end of this broadcast, you will be maybe in home offices most likely, and just in case you have members of your household, domestic pets, crashing into your workspace and creating a noise unexpectedly, we mute everybody's lines to save everybody's blushes. So that's the plan. As I said, about 45 minutes running time, and then we'll let you get on with the rest of your Thursday afternoon. My name is Bernie Simmons, by the way. I should have introduced myself already. I'll be your main facilitator. So in terms of agenda, we'll do a quick whistle through the background to the current challenges in local government. I'll give you a bit of an introduction to My Council Services in terms of how it's structured. And in doing that, I'll just introduce us as a company very, very briefly, but I'll keep the kind of company chat to an absolute minimum. We'll talk briefly about local authorities who are using the platform. I will give over the majority of our time together, probably about at least 20, possibly 25 minutes, to a demonstration of the platform, both kind of front office, i.e. customer facing, and back office, as in the way that the local authority employees might use the application. So that will be the demonstration. I talked about Q&A via the chat facility. So that's the plan. Let's get on with it. Challenges to public sector service delivery. Well, no changes, unfortunately, over the last decade plus, and certainly post-financial crash. And then we've got, as if that wasn't enough to deal with its long legacy. We're now dealing with a public health emergency that is obviously diverting funds and resources, and meaning that local authorities in the UK are having to run extremely efficiently, to put it politely, with a need and a distinct pressure on budgets to deliver what are referred to as cashable savings, and also often having to reduce the resources that you've got at your disposal to realise some of those savings. So that's removal or reduction of people and both assets none of which are particularly welcome trends, but they are the reality of contemporary public service delivery until such times as things change. If you ally to that what's going on more broadly for us as individuals as part of a kind of modern Western democracy, there's shifting customer expectations. As consumers, we generally expect immediate responses. We have expectations of both quality and choice in terms of the services we use and the way that we access those services. Increasingly, we want to go through digital channels. And of course, there are almost unlimited ways of getting hold of service delivery organisations, be they commercial or public sector. Think about social media, the other digital channels that are available from our smartphones and tablets and so on. So if you're a service delivery organisation generally and a public sector service delivery organisation specifically for the purpose of this conversation, there are no shortage of challenges, I'm afraid. But there are plenty of technology. There's plenty of technology assistance to help make life easier and more efficient, which is what we're going to focus on next. If you think about bookings and appointments, and when you start to, you may not immediately think about a local authority as a ripe location or target for bookings and appointments activities, unless you spend any time inside one, working for one, or like we do, working with them. We only work, out of us, with UK local authorities. That's been our sole kind of focus over the last 13, almost 14 years now that we've been in business. And we've been delivering My Council Services as a platform for just over almost 10 of those now, just over 9 years. But we think about bookings and appointments in particular, they're relatively complex processes. When you start to unpack them, they have lots of different characteristics. They will have multiple steps, multiple different variations on a theme, and they also cover multiple different service areas in a local authority context. So that will include things like waste, things like leisure, things like revenues and benefits, and also varying types of bookings. It could be an asset, a facility like a football pitch or a venue or a meeting room. It could be booking and arranging a service delivery like a bulky item removal from your property by the council. And they may well have ancillary products and charges associated with them. So they are, when you start to unpack them, and we've developed our bookings and appointment suite really in collaboration with our customers. We've worked with, I think at the last count, 52 UK local authorities on an ongoing basis, providing our software as a service platform that is called My Council Services. And we've worked closely with our customers in the ongoing development of our bookings and appointment suite. And as experienced software developers, even we have been surprised at the level of iterations and the range of, as I said, variations on a classical theme that you can get when you start to think about bookings and appointments. And there's also a temporal and chronological aspect, repeatability, frequency, and so on and so forth. That said, so there's some of the challenges around tackling the multiple service areas that might want to make use of a bookings and appointments capability. But there are also opportunities, because when you start to break them down, the processes that you're trying to digitize are generally pretty logical, and they can be replicated using software tools, assuming that you have the correct digital toolkit. And they're also ripe for review and improvement. It never ceases to amaze us just how many both paper-based and Excel-based systems there are in our local authority customers still even. And we're often working with them to improve those situations and make them more efficient, which feeds into the broader agenda that we were talking about a few minutes ago. The other thing which is quite encouraging in the current climate is that bookings and appointments and bookable service delivery activities are often represent an opportunity to generate sustainable revenue for the council, and in times of constraint on budget, that's always welcome. So some challenges, but a bunch of opportunities as well. So I want to speak very briefly about the recent history in local government. Certainly, when we first started working with UK local authorities, we were stepping into organisations that tended to be quite siloed. So you tended to see, for example, if you took waste as an example, or planning, or revs and bends, they would tend to operate not in total isolation of their professional colleagues across the council, but there was certainly a more siloed mentality. And when you think about the potential complexity in some of those service areas that I've just mentioned, that's not desperately surprising. These are often resource-intensive, complex operations in their own right, let alone when you bundle them together and put them into a large UK local authority. So it's not surprising that within a service area there was a tendency to look inward rather than look across to your colleagues elsewhere. I think if there has been any benefit from the austerity agenda that's been upon us, as I said, for the last 12 years or so now, it's probably forced local authorities to think more laterally about how they implement their IT systems. But with the legacy platforms in place and a much more kind of siloed approach, you tended to get duplication of service area structures, of IT systems that supported those individual service areas, and also the administration platforms that enable them and processes that enable them to happen, be they digital or otherwise. So there's lots of downsides of a kind of more siloed approach. What we've seen, certainly in our time being active and operating in the market, and I'll just build this slide up and then I'll talk you through it, is a significant move forward from local authorities to embrace a slightly different way of working, a much more kind of, as I said, lateral enterprise approach. So what you're typically seeing is the emergence of a pan-organisational customer services function, which is the front door, the shop window, whichever, choose your metaphor, through which customers can access either physically or digitally. So that could be via a PC or a smartphone or a tablet device, or they might even use their smartphone to pick the phone up and speak to somebody at the other end of the line. I'm sure most of you at local authorities are still offering a telephone service and perhaps some drop-in services. And then sitting behind that, you've got the service-specific functions, some of which require bookings and appointments capability, and then enabling all of that to happen is your friendly colleagues in IT trying to desperately consolidate the number of systems and vendor relationships that they're supporting, and also trying to make sense of and unpick often the kind of the spaghetti soup that is data architecture in large organisations. So there's lots going on in terms of organisational change and development of organisational structure in local authorities. How does our platform, My Council Services, map to that? Well, it maps in a number of different ways, and it's a modular system in that regard. At the top of the stack, you've got what we call a kind of a customer self-service suite, and we'll be showing you some of that in a moment. But that's really the ability for the customer to use a device, a PC, a smartphone, a tablet, to access the digital services that the council makes available, and we'll be showing you some examples of that. Sitting behind that immediately and very much allied to that is a kind of first stage customer relationship management screens and case management screens that we offer that enable a local authority and its operatives, its staff, to manage those inbound cases and service requests and bookings and so on and so forth. And then you've got things that we refer to as line of business systems and modules. I'll talk more about those in a moment, but one of those, for example, is our bookings and appointments capability. The other aspect to all of this that's worth bearing in mind is that we realise and we acknowledge and we are very comfortable with the fact that we are rarely the only game in town in terms of systems and data in a local authority. So we offer integration, and we also offer automation, and we offer master data management. So the ability to really kind of wrangle your data infrastructure and make sure you get, for example, a single view of the customer. When you think about the delivery of service out in the borough that may be based on a booking, let's take the removal of a bulky item in return for a charge from a customer's home, you might be thinking about mobile working. So that's another kind of piece of the puzzle. You will almost certainly want to automate some of the workflow that underpins all of those different aspects of digital processes. So we offer a rules engine and an automation engine, and we offer a communications capability which allows you to message back to the customer in real time, pretty much, to keep them updated in terms of what's going on. So lots of kind of different moving parts with kind of bookings and appointments at the centre of many and some of those processes. Let me just dip down in a bit more detail into some of the components that sit within those kind of broad categories of functionality that I've just described. If you think about the self-service and CRM piece, there's an e-form designer, there's case management screens. We offer a My Account Enterprise portal. We can uprate ID authentication and verification in terms of single sign-on and two-factor verification. We are fully GDPR compliant. We offer both a browser-based and a native mobile application-based means of accessing those services that are in sync and integrated as part of the platform. I mentioned the kind of line of business modules. There's a couple of things that we'll show you this afternoon in relation to that. We are, of course, going to show you the scheduling, bookings and appointments module. We'll do a few examples of that in a few minutes. And in a couple of those, at least, we'll show you integrated payment as part of that process, the ability to collect payment. And we may even get time to have a quick look at some of the automation pieces. Just to break down the way that our bookings and appointments capabilities are structured, I thought it would be worth talking about the individual plugins that make them up. And I mentioned a few moments ago that we work with our local authorities, we have worked with our local authorities, customers, and we continue to work with them to continue to develop the bookings and appointments plugins because of the range of capability that is required and the whole, the complete variety of different requirements that you need to meet if you're going to offer a comprehensive enterprise bookings capability. We've developed a suite of plugins that can be called and used within our eForm designer. So there is a waste bookings plugin, for example, which enables something that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, which is bulky item collection, is a good example of that. It could also be used for the booking of ad hoc commercial waste collections, if that's something that your council offers. Events bookings plugin is another one. So if you run ticketed events, that's probably where you'd use that. Assets bookings, so if you're maybe leasing out or renting out football pitches, tennis courts, those sorts of things, and you allow advanced booking online, that would probably call on our assets booking capability. And we also offer a rooms booking capability. That's more of an internal application, but the ability to book, well, actually, it could be internal and external. It could be the booking of meeting rooms internally within a building. It could also be the booking of venues, for example, a registry office that you make available to the public. So it could be meeting rooms, it could be venues, it could be any of those things. And then finally, we also offer an out-and-out appointment booking. So if you want customers want to be able to book meetings with advisors or whatever it happens to be, then there's an appointment booking piece, and all of which can offer a kind of calendar integration and so on and so forth. So that's how we're structured. I'll just tie this the kind of the module walkthrough quickly with a mention of mobile working. If you then have got an activity that needs to be done out in the borough as the result of a booking, you can do that through our mobile working capability. We probably won't look at that this afternoon, but I just thought I'd mention it as part of the walkthrough of how the platform is structured. In terms of customers that we work with, again, I won't read this back to you. I will share a copy of the slides with you, or we will share a copy of the slides with you once we're done this afternoon. And there's some examples of 25 recent examples of My Council Services information implementations, some of which are still underway and active. They're all still active customers. Some are kind of fully fledged and have been working with us for, well, almost upwards of 8 or 9 years, actually. We have pretty good customer retention in that regard. But they're all kind of recent active examples of implementations that we've completed. So on that note, I promise I'd give over a good deal of our time to showing you some actual software in action. So I'm going to jump out of the slides. I'm going to discard my scribbles on screen. I hope that helps kind of set the scene a little bit. And we're going to jump across to a login screen. So this is your kind of first glance of My Council Services. Just a couple of words by way of introduction. What I'm about to show you is a completely vanilla instance of My Council Services in its account portal, so My Customer Account Portal format. You don't have to deliver it in this way. When we provide the customer-facing self-service side of My Council Services, you get really kind of 3 primary components. Individual e-forms, you can have as many of those as you like. You can develop them from scratch. You can borrow them from our forms library. You can deploy My Council Services as a customer account portal as a fully integrated component of your website, alongside any individual e-forms that you might be deploying as a fully integrated component of your website. And we also offer a native mobile application, both on Android and iOS, that can be downloaded by customers for them to use on their tablets and their smartphones. As an aside, that native mobile application also enables our mobile working capability, but that's not really the focus for the conversation this afternoon. Anyone that was with us this morning, a couple of hours ago, will have seen that in action from a waste perspective. So on that note, and after that introduction, let me go ahead and log in as a test customer. So what you're about to see is a kind of fully fledged My Account portal. It's in it, as I said earlier, it's in its completely kind of unbranded format, which has just got a very simple My Council Services logo in the top left-hand corner. When we implement this for customers, this is delivered very much as a fully integrated, fully branded aspect of the .gov.uk site that the council is running. So it becomes an integrated and seamlessly embedded component within your own web property. So that can be the individual e-forms, and it can be the My Account portal if you want to deploy that. And you can choose how you want to deploy it, and you can have both, of course, alongside the delivery of a suite of native mobile applications that are also fully branded. So it's a completely configurable feast in that way. So Let me give you a bit of an introduction to what you're looking at on screen so it starts to make perhaps a little bit more sense. On the left-hand side, you've got a left-hand sidebar, not surprisingly. That's completely configurable and can be tailored, extended, reduced, new things introduced, so on and so forth, that suit your particular requirements, and it can be changed quickly. It can be reconfigured, to look one way on a Monday morning and a different way by Monday lunchtime, and that can be done really with minimal technical expertise. You don't have to be a scripter and a coder to design a form, embed it in your portal or onto your website. That can be done by really kind of business folks, or certainly a business analyst type level operation. So that's the left-hand sidebar. In the middle of the screen, you've got a bunch of what we call kind of hotspots or widgets. Again, these are completely configurable. You can turn them on, you can turn them off, you can have more, you can have less of them. We've got quite a lot going on in this example because we've got lots of things turned on in terms of functionality. And then on the right-hand side, where I'm hovering with my mouse at the minute, you've got some really, I suppose, what you might refer to as management information for the customer. They can see the number of service requests that they've got currently open, anything that they've currently got in process, contracts they've got in place, any bookings that they may have made. So pertinent for this conversation, payments that are due, also links into third-party systems. So things like, we've done lots of integrations into revenues and benefits systems, so to enable customers to view their council tax records or their benefits claim records or whatever it might be. So that's the general layout of the platform. The whole thing is enabled for search, so you can just search for an item if you don't want to click to it. And what we'll do at this stage is we'll just start to run a few examples. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Book It example here, and I'm going to click on Book It, and that will take us into a set of nested forms. And I'm going to do a couple of examples. I'll do something fairly simple first off, and we'll go and book a library appointment. So this is something actually that's, I suppose, quite topical, really. It's something that we've worked with with our customers over the last, really since the end of March, since we initially went into lockdown, and libraries then subsequently reopened, but under very different COVID secure regimes whereby bookings were essential. So we've enabled a few customers to enable, quite a number of customers actually, to enable library booking appointments for their library customers. So if I click on that, I know I'm using a plugin, so I'm using the appointments booking plugin in this example, assets booking plugin in this example. I click on select. I can choose a facility, the main library. I can either choose a date or I can just go and see, when's my next available date. And so what it's telling me is, today is the 24th of September, but if you want an appointment at the main library, your next available appointment is 11:30 on the 29th. So you can go to the library then, renew your books, so on and so forth. And we can add in various options. You could make that a repeat booking if you wish, or over a date range. So if we select that, it's non-chargeable. It writes that information back into the transaction that we're completing, which will become a service request when we get into the back office, and we'll go there in a moment. And then we click on next, and it will take us to the next page of bookings, which just confirms that our booking is complete, and then we can just go ahead, and that request will be submitted, and it will then trigger a notification back to the customer that will then confirm that appointment. So you'll notice, the more eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed that the bookings and appointments counter has clicked up a notch. So I think we're 143 now, on 144. And if I click onto that, you can see now that I've got a main library booking appointment for the 29th of September. So customers can see specifically what type of bookings they're making and see any change to those statuses or whatever it might be. So that's a first relatively simple example of using an assets booking capability to secure a library appointment, a COVID secure library appointment. Let's jump back to bookings again. We're going to focus on that. I'm going to take a slightly different slant in this example, and we're going to take a look at booking a market stall. So this is something that's much more kind of in the council to business service delivery capability. Again, it's been something that we've worked with the council on. And this is just a specific example from a prospective customer conversation that we've been having. So the first part of the form gives you some basic information on that particular form, when the markets are running in particular market towns and locations, what the overall costs are. So there's context around the booking. That's an HTML insert effectively into the form. You'll notice across the top of the form, this is a slightly longer form, slightly more complex process with more options to it. you've got the ability, you get a breadcrumb trail of what's going on. So you know that you're on the second step of a 5-step process. I'll click on next. And then we get our plugin bookings market stall booking option available to us. I click on select. And I can do various things at that point. It will present me with a whole bunch of options. If I want to, I know which one I want to go to, then I can just select the market location that I want to trade at. So I click on Spalding and we search, and then it will just filter down those for any Spalding market date. So I can do a number of things. There are different stall formats available to me as a market trader, whether I'm a regular trader or whether I'm a casual trader that turns up periodically. Let's say I want to book a regular stall. It will then open those options up for me. So it's okay, you've got a regular stall. The cost of that is going to be £17.40. If at any time I need to remove it, I can delete that from my transaction. And then we've got a couple of options open to us. So in this example, we allow the market trader that's interested in booking this stall to add in an electrical hookup and a water supply. I'll just take a pause there for a second and draw your attention up to the top here, because what the bookings plugin is also doing is it's interfacing with our products module, and the products module is allowing the bookings process to calculate a price based on the options that have been selected. So far I've booked a regular stall at Spalding Market on the 26th of the 9th, and that's going to cost me the total of £17.40 including VAT. If I then want to add in an electrical hookup because I require electricity and perhaps I'm serving food there, so I also want the water supply, I can add both of those things in. I can have multiples of them if I wish, should that be appropriate. And you'll notice that the products database that can be configured alongside a booking and appointment process is constantly tallying up the cost, so the customer is aware of, in this case, of everything that's going on. So we then click on book, and it will write the details of that transaction back into the service request that we're creating, the booking that we're creating. We click on next, and that takes us to our next stage. And this is another important point in the kind of bookings process. Often I mentioned the ability as part of a bookings process to generate sustainable revenue for the council. Collecting revenue is an activity in and of itself, something that the council does a lot of, or hopefully, to make sure you can balance the books and maintain reserves and so on. And in this example, we are integrating into a payment gateway. So we're using Barclaycard Payment Gateway as a test because they provide a nice flexible, open-ended test facility. We've done an awful lot of integration to payment gateways with customers, council customers over the years. So I'll name check a few. Barclaycard is clearly one. Capita, Civica are also popular options. We've also done a whole bunch of work around direct debit payments. So if they're ongoing, perhaps renewal contracts or repeatable bookings that customers want to hang on to, they want to do it by direct debit. So we've worked with Bottom Line, with Go Cardless, a whole bunch of different options in terms of integration around there. Interestingly, on the payment integration piece, once we've done a payment integration once, so we've integrated into your payment gateway of choice, that then exists as another plugin on the platform, and that could be used for any other bookings or any other process that requires payments. It doesn't just have to be a bookings payment integration. It's an enterprise-wide payment integration that can be used right across the organisation within My Council Services. So we'll click on the Barclaycard icon that will take us through, and then do a secure handshake with the payment gateway. It carries across the order reference, the total charge that was calculated, and again, the more eagle-eyed of you will notice that it's picked up the £47.40 that we calculated based on the regular stall, the £17.40 plus the monies paid for the electrical and the water hookup. And then I'll click on payment type. So I'm using a test card for Visa in this example. And it will pick up the cardholder's name, the number. We'll put in an expiry date. Any date in the future will do. And a fictitious CVC number. So at this point, we are not on the My Council Services platform. We've done a secure and seamless handshake with the payment integration engine, sorry, the merchant services and payment gateway engine. So that's doing its payment card industry compliant stuff. Once it's done that, it will seamlessly hand us back to the My Council Services platform and tell us the outcome of that transaction. So in this example, the payment has been accepted. If the payment had been declined for whatever reason and your payment gateway capability allowed for it, you'd be able to offer the customer to present an alternative card or an alternative means of payment. So anything that your payment gateway can support in terms of payment format, chip and PIN, card holder not present, whatever it might be, repeat payments, alternative forms of payment, we can support from the My Council Services perspective. So I'll then click on Next. That's pretty much the transaction done. And then we can click on Submit. And then as a market trader looking to book, in this case, Spalding Market for a regular store with both electrical and water hookups, that's my job done. We've seen that in other authorities where it's actually quite a complex and long-winded and multi-step process, and you can really kind of simplify these processes down using an effective digital toolkit for enabling bookings and appointments. So I'm going to show you one other example in a different area, which has got, again, multiple facets to it. I'm going to go back to the Book It screen. And this time I'm just going to do a bulky collection because this introduces kind of other elements of complexity. I did show this one on the waste example this morning, but it's a good example of a multifaceted bookings process. So this is using the waste bookings plugin. So again, we're into the familiar form format, and this is one of the other benefits I think of using a common enterprise platform, is that regardless of whether customers are going to market stalls or whether they're booking an appointment at a council location, or whether they're booking a slot at the local library, or in this case, booking a service that's going to come to their home and deliver the thing, the interface is similar and consistent. So we get the breadcrumb trail across the top. We've got a set of information that introduces and contextualizes the transaction that they're about to complete. And we'll click on Select. That will pull through the Waste Bookings plugin. A number of things are going on here, not that they're particularly obvious to the customer, but there's some quite clever things going on in the background. So first of all, it's pulling through the registered address for the customer because we're operating as a registered customer in this example. And then when I select down date for this particular process, this is a waste collection, remember. And in this example, only particular collections are available in particular locations in the borough. So this is interfacing with the round management database from Waste Services. So there's another interface going on here. There's the bookings process, and then there's the handoff to the waste. When is this service as a curbside collection actually available in my area as an ad hoc requested service for bulky item removal? So I might say, well, I want the date on the 12th of October. That would suit me because I've got a day off that day. Click on Confirm. It will then return back the slots that are available on that day. It says we don't book a particular time slot, but it's sometime between 9:30 and 16:30. But there are slots available. So if my customer, my fictitious Gary Wilcox, who's the student that I'm operating under today, is happy with that, he can select that special collection date. And then we're into the detail of the collection process and the way that that's designed for the council, or that this particular council has designed it. And this is what we call a weighted collection. So you may say, well, I've got a few things I want to get rid of. I've got an electrical appliance. Doesn't seem to be showing me that, so let's choose something different. Piece of furniture. I'll try that. Seems to turn them all off for me. See if I can proceed from that basis. Doesn't allow me to do that. Not to worry. Tried that an hour ago. Worked like a dream. Try it again. One last try and then we'll move on. Yeah, doesn't seem to like me this afternoon. The process that we would have run through there would have been very similar to the exercise that we were doing a few minutes ago. We would have stepped through to adding the details, calculating a price, adding photos if we wish to of the materials that are going to be removed, completing a payment via the integrated payment gateway, confirming, and then moving on. So there's a few examples there in terms of how that's working. So we've stepped through, I think, 3 examples so far: a library booking example, a market stores booking example, and we're just giving you a sense of what the bulky item removal process would look like. So that's some front of house examples in terms of how a customer would interface with, in this case, the portal or potentially individual forms to allow them to completely self-serve from a bookings and appointments perspective. So what we'll do now is we'll take a slight change in direction, and instead of working under our customer hat, we're going to work now as a council operative, as what you might refer to as sort of a trusted user, I suppose. And what I'm going to do that is just bring a different interface across a different browser. And we're going to log in again. So I'll pause at that point just to describe a little bit about the My Council Services platform and background. Everything that we offer from a My Council Services perspective is software as a service. So it's a cloud-based application. So everything that the customer was doing up until just a few seconds ago in the portal is all using software as a service-based software, and everything that we're about to do as a operative, as an administrator perhaps, or a council officer of some description in the back office is also cloud-based, so it can be accessed from anywhere. And on that basis, I'm going to log in with a different set of credentials. And that takes us into the service desk interface in the back office. So we've changed roles. Everything we've done so far in the last 15 or 20 minutes has been customer doing it for themselves, self-service. Everything we're going to do now from here on in is going to be related to administering those back office processes, and we'll kind of gradually get deeper and deeper into the core of the application. But we're going to start that by looking at service desk. So service desk is the My Council Services de facto case management capability. And you can govern what you look at in two different ways. So I'm looking at the minute as a whole bunch of waste processes, but I'm going to change that view so you can see special collections, missed collections, so on and so forth. But I'm going to change that view, and we're going to go and we're going to look at bookings. So I'm going to spin down, and we'll go to bookings, and we'll search. And you can see that I've got that library appointment that was booked by Gary Wilcox today at 14:53. If I wanted to change that view again, and I wanted to look, instead of just generic bookings, I wanted to look at, if I can find it, markets, search, and I can see those market store bookings that I made. So today at 1500, again under Gary's profile. So within My Council Services Service Desk, what you've got is a comprehensive case management capability. So if I go into that booking, for example, I click on the service request number that's been assigned to it, I can see all of the detail of that particular booking that's been made by that particular customer. So I can see it was done by a registered customer, so I know the name, and I would need to know the name for this. I can see that it was a Spalding Market regular spool with an electrical hookup and a water supply. I can see Gary's home address. I can see a whole range of different things that are open to me, the payment that's been made, any other additions that have been added to it. It's also been assigned to me. So if I'm the markets inspector, there's a piece of automated workflow going on there that's assigning it out to me automatically, and any other details that may have been added to it. There's also a separate bookings console. So you can manage this as a case in terms of an individual booking, and actually from the bookings menu, which you can see where I'm hovering my mouse on the left-hand sidebar in the back office at the moment, you can go in and manage the bookings by booking type as kind of a bulk function, so bulk updates and all those sorts of things. The other thing that I should draw your attention to within this particular service request is the range of case management options that are open to you. So I can add documents, notes, interactions, I can create a task from here, I can link it to another booking or another service request, I can view the history of everything that's been done to it, so all of the details that have been submitted, any changes by the system or by individual users that have been applied. So if there's ever any sort of kind of forensic investigation to something that's been done or something's gone wrong with it, you want to find out what happened and when and who's done what, you can go in and do that very quickly and very easily. I can update owner status, information priority. I can communicate back to the customer via email, SMS and letter, so you can set up letter templates. I mentioned adding documents. You might need to get a trading document or their food safety certificate and food hygiene certificate if they're serving food, all these sorts of things. So you can manage all of the iterations of a process. So the key here really, folks, is you can do things within Service Desk. You can have the automated workflow doing those tasks and activities that lend themselves to automation. And if you require something to be done more manually that requires human intervention, human discretion, then you can allow the case management tools to be available for whoever the appropriate officer is. In terms of the level of information that's available to a council officer or any other user on the platform, the entire My Council Services platform is governed by what we call RBAC, Role-Based Access Control. And that covers two aspects of the My Council Services platform. From a user's perspective, it covers the functionality that you can access and use. And then from a data perspective, it covers the data that you're allowed to see from a GDPR perspective. So you'll only see data that's pertinent to your job that you're supposed to see. If you're not supposed to see personal information, you won't be able to see that. So that's the role-based access control module is constantly running in the background and manages access to functionality and to visibility of data from a GDPR perspective. So that's some of the service desk functionality. Just a couple of other bits and pieces that I wanted to share with you. I want to just drop into the administration function for a moment. And the administration function is where we really kind of can configure and set up My Council services in detail. So there's, for example, at the basic level, there's a forms builder, so you can design a form from scratch. We also offer a forms store, so you can borrow with pride from customers that are also developing forms if you want to. I don't know what we've got in here. Let's have a search. So we've got a few existing market booking forms. So you can see Newport. We've got a Newport market application form. There's a complaint about market traders forms. Anything with the word market in it will return basically. So if you're interested in doing that, say you want to borrow, you've got a farmers market running and you want to borrow Ashford Borough Council's farmers market booking form, you can look at that, you can preview it, and then you can import it into your instance and you can improve it from there. So you've got both the ability to design forms from scratch, but also the ability to share forms across different local authorities. You don't have to share your forms having designed them, but I think from the last count, there's something like 3,000 different form templates in our production system. So councils tend to share quite openly in terms of effectively intellectual property that they're happy to share with their professional colleagues across the country. And we find that a very, very kind of popular option within the platform, the form store. I talked about things like integration to payment gateways. So I'll just show you some examples for that. So if I just search for things like plugins, so I search for plug, and I go into plugin, you can see that we've got payment integration. Once we've done that payment integration, that sits as a plugin on the platform. So when we've done it for you as a project in your council, you can then use that payment integration for any other process that might require the collection of payments. So you may have set it up for the collection of payments for market stalls or the booking of meeting rooms or whatever else it might be, but you can use it right across the piece. You're not constrained in the way that's used once that's set up for you. The other thing I meant to mention, I'm just going to jump back on myself just for a moment. I'm going to go back to Service Desk and show you one other example, because I meant to explain the way that the forms reflect in two directions. So we were using forms a little bit earlier for a customer to do things in a self-service context, but those forms also reflect back to be used internally. So if I click on Add when I'm within Service Desk, I can go into any form catalogue. So I might want to go and, for example, look at bookings. And those same bookings forms exist for me as a council officer as they will for customers, although they can be manifested in a different way based on my profile. So if I wanted to go and do a room booking, for example, I could do that. So I'll do it under my own profile, so I'm booking an internal meeting room or a venue or whatever it might be, and I'll click on select. I'll select a location, so it's the Pretend Abavus Community Centre, it's on the ground floor, it's meeting room B, I want it for tomorrow, I want it from 10 AM to midday, for example, and we'll search for availability. It automatically returns the availability to me. I can go and view the details on that if I want, so exactly where it is. I could see pictures of it, details around it. So I've got all of the kind of metadata about the venue that I'm booking. If I want to go ahead and book that, I can select it. I can choose to have additional ancillary items added. So in this case, tea and coffee for my attendees. I can go ahead and confirm, and I can book that room. Click on next, and then submit. So those forms face in both directions. You can use them as customer self-service, and you can use them internally for any process, and also as a mediated process. The final piece I'm going to show you very, very quickly is just a little bit of reporting. There's a full suite of reporting capability within My Council Services. So the high-level overview reporting is our dashboard. So I can go and I can look at, well, we want to report on bookings. Just refresh that, and it will give you inbound bookings by process. So I can slice those down by any process that I want. So room booking, whatever it happens to be, and it will recut those for me. I get that by day, by week, by month, by device, by channel, so on and so forth. So that's the dashboard reporting. I've mentioned Service Desk, which gives you both tabular reporting of inbound requests by function, by activity. That can also be produced as a map if you want to do that. And then the more detailed reporting, what we label analytics, is a whole bunch of pre-configured really kind of granular level, atomic level tabular reports that can be automatically created and configured and then download. You can take that off platform. So that could be looking at payments, for example. So if you wanted to go for financial reconciliation report, we're looking at everything that comes through the Barclaycard payment gateway, and we were looking at the revenue that comes through market stall bookings. Click on go, and that will then return those details of all of the revenue that's been collected via the market stall booking program by location for a particular area. So you've got a whole range of retrospective reporting capability and the ability to access that data at any time that you want. So that's a very quick walk through of the range of capabilities that we offer as part of the My Council Services platform. What I'll do is just spend the last 30 seconds giving you just a few tips that we've learned over really the last 10 years of doing this in terms of getting started with the My Council Services solution. We often recommend thinking about breaking your project up into phases. So My Council Services can be implemented incrementally. So you could just implement it for market bookings, or any other bookings function that you might want to use, room bookings, venue bookings, and then you might want to expand the use out of it as things progress. The other thing that we found has worked well for councils, both large and small, is to kind of plan your delivery in phases in terms of what it is you're going to knock over first, and to plan for some of those early tactical wins. Perhaps do some of the easier stuff first, and then plan for the mid to longer term some of those strategic goals. That enables you to do a couple of things. One is kind of manage the risk and investment and phase the investment, but it also enables you as a project team to build a bit of momentum, help build confidence with your internal customers that you can deliver these things and get things moving. The other thing I'd say is that My Council Services is open. And when we say open, what we mean is it will play nicely with other systems in the platform. So we offer a full web services-based API, application program interface, that enables either you or us on your behalf to build integrations into third-party applications so that you can share data across the council. And then really, I think more as a statement to temper the excitement around technology, is to say that technology is really only part of the solution. You do need to think carefully about process mapping and process planning. Certainly in our experience, it doesn't make sense just to roll over historical non-digital processes onto a digital platform. You really want to review those processes and see if you can refine them and drive efficiencies therein, and find ways of simplifying those processes. So technology is an important part of the solution, but it is only part of the solution. You need to plan carefully, you need to process map, you need to process review, and you need to educate both customers and staff and platform users in terms of how this is going to impact and change their working practices. On that note, it just remains for me to say thank you very much for participating this afternoon. We're very conscious that these kind of intro sessions are a bit of a white knuckle ride through a broad range of functionality, but we hope it's given you a useful insight and a useful taste to the way that My Council Services can be used for both bookings and appointments as part of a wider council transformation program. Thanks again, folks, and enjoy the remainder of your Thursday afternoon. Bye-bye now.